Welcome to the Building Sheriffs podcast. I am Paul Puccioni, otherwise known as Pooch, and with me is Chris E.W. Jowett. Today we are talking about fencing. It's been very windy and I know lots of people have panels knocked over, furniture knocked over, things damaged, and it might be a good time to chat about this. Firstly, let me say hello to old E.W. How are you, mate?
I'm fine, old sport. I'm fine. Fencing. I don't have any fences here, of course. I live in Wensleydale. I've got a completely stone-walled garden. It's been up for 200 years, and when the wind blows, it doesn't budge a millimetre.
No, but when the wind blows, you also get zero protection from your 2-foot-high stone wall.
Oh, no. There's one that's 6 foot high and one that's 4.5 feet high. This is proper stone walls, mate. This isn't some naff little ornamental nonsense that you girls in Esher like to pretend it is a wall. This is a manly wall.
I'm sure. I'm sure. My uncle
they're 2 foot thick, for God's sake. And that's just a garden wall.
Oh, I know. My uncle used to build them.
Yeah. Did he?
Yeah, my uncle used to build them.
Did he?
Yes, yeah. He did. Oh, yes. He knew all about stone walls.
Good lad.
What my Uncle Cliff didn't know about anything wasn't worth knowing.
Oh, one of them blokes. I know a bloke like that. He's sitting in my trousers right now. They're a nightmare of blokes like that.
I tell you what, talking of nightmares, you will not believe this. I had a day off today.
I don't believe that.
Oh, well, a day off because I'm going to be working nights, which I'll come to in a minute. But I had a day off from the tools. And so I thought, do you know what? The missus has flown off to Miami today. Joe's gone to some reward thing for being brilliant at her job. So she's got a free week in Miami, which can't be bad.
A week?
A week, yep. You get some fantastic award and all the best people from around the world get to go to Miami and do things that you do in Miami, which sounds fantastic. Meanwhile, I'm left here, which is absolutely fine. I thought I'd go shopping. So I thought, well, it's middle of the day. There'll be no one around. So I headed to Tesco's.
Sorry, Pooch.
What?
Sorry, Pooch. I do apologise.
What the hell are all of these people doing during the day? Why aren't they at work? It was packed.
Are they all my age?
No. There were people swanning around in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Yes, there were loads of old people getting in your way really slowly. That's to be expected. Yeah. But there were kids who should have been at school.
Well, then.
And I'm just thinking, what are you lot doing? Why aren't you at work?
Well, most people in that situation, if they're out shopping, they've got some money in their pocket. A lot of people, Pooch, do part-time work. Not everybody works 15 hours a day like you do.
No, I know. I mean, there were plenty of mums in the 3/4 length jogging bottoms who had obviously dropped the kids off to school, gone to do some shopping and then going to pick the kids up. I understand all of that. But there was this whole swathe of humanity that I've only ever seen on a Saturday afternoon before when I've been dragged into Kingston with my wife that were out. Now, did it just happen today or does that always happen?
No, it's a constant process. Give any situation and there are 17,000 people in Esher doing it.
Well, I think they're just a bunch of lazy should get a job.
Oh, they're probably
so there.
They're probably not all skiving.
No, I know.
It is interesting, though. It is interesting. I mean, many a time I go into people's houses and I've wanted to ask them what they do, and of course you don't ask people what they do if they volunteer the information. That's fine, but you think, well, surely, this is a given. I do believe that in school one day when I was about 16, I must have been away when everyone else was told how to live their life properly financially, because everyone else seems to know how to do it, and I'm buggered if I do.
I think I was skiving with you that day as well, and in a pretty similar position. So we just end up working our backsides off and absolutely flabbergasted when you go out and you realise all these people got buying these 49-inch TVs on a Tuesday. You think, what's that all about?
Yes. These things aren't 200 quid.
I mean, that's because I'm going to be working nights this week, Chris. We are refurbishing a gym in Notting Hill. I know you can't think of anything worse.
Well, I can't think of anything worse than living in London. And Esher, darling, is in London as far as I'm concerned, because you don't get fields between your house and the Houses of Parliament. So you're going into London to work nights. What a nightmare.
Yes, I'm quite looking forward to it. And I did think, brilliant. I'm not one for sleeping that much. So I thought I can go to work, come back about 5 a.m., wake up about 9, and then I'll have the day to myself. But as I found out today, every other bugger seems to have the day to themselves as well, and they get in my way.
And they don't go to work at night. They just have the day to themselves because of some for some process that they've worked out that you haven't. They don't need to go to work at all.
Do you know one thing I will do tomorrow? And I've been meaning to do this for a while. It's been jolly windy indeed recently, hasn't it? Probably even up there. And one of our fence panels has come adrift of its post. So very simple job. If you know what you're doing, I'm just going to put it back and screw it back in. But what about if you knew nothing about fencing and you wake up one morning and your fence is, well, a fence in your garden has blown down? Firstly, whose fence is it?
Indeed. And I've noticed something. First of all, you used to be able to tell which was your fence because when everyone was nice to each other in the 50s and started building fences, you put the bad side towards you. You put the good side towards your neighbour. Yep. But now, because we all hate, particularly in London, when no one speaks to each other, you're not going to spend £1,000 putting a fence up and then have the horrid side facing you. No, you're going to put the nice side because you don't speak to the so-and-sos next door anyway. So what does it matter they've got the rotten side of the fence?
I understand what you're saying, but slightly cynical view because we still do put the horrid side on your side. And we give the good side to the neighbours. And we always advise the customers. And you tend to be replacing like for like, because if a fence comes down, it's 20 years old, they've done it in the right way, and then you put it back the same way. So that's how you can tell usually. If you've got an arras rail, which is a triangular bit of timber running the length of your fence, then that's probably your fence. And if you've got a nice finished panel, that's probably your neighbour's.
By the way, arras rails aren't triangular anymore.
Aren't they?
Oh no, they're not. They're just square edge timber. Just a bit of 3x3 or whatever. It's 10 foot long. Because arras rail costs money to produce. Probably more. Obviously, everything costs money, but arras rail costs more to produce or more to cut on the squint than a bit of 3x3 or 4x4. So once again, all these old values. Gravel boards? No. They've all gone down the pan, mate.
Well, funnily enough, I was going to come on to gravel boards because most people, let's do a technical term here, bit of terminology. Most people won't know what a gravel board is. They'll see their fence panel, and beneath that, they'll probably see a 6x1 bit of timber, 6 foot wide, and they'll think, well, what's that there for? Well, that's your gravel board, and that is in contact with the earth, and it sucks up all the moisture, and basically it takes a hit for the team. It is the bit that decays. So you lift your panel out, replace the gravel board, and off you go. But you're right. People aren't fitting gravel boards
Sacrificial
anymore.
timbers.
Absolutely.
Because it's cheaper not to. And bugger the next 20 years, you'll have moved anyway, so who cares? Anyway, I think you'd call me a cynical old bastard. I do believe that. That's not what EW stands for, is it?
No, something far worse than that. I think you would call me a cynical old bastard if you were standing in front of me on the escalators in Tesco today with all the escalator amateurs who have never been on the London Underground and realise that if you're just standing there and not walking, you stand on the bloody right and let everyone who's going about their business pile in down the left-hand side. And I was behind a gaggle of people chit-chatting away, and I was having to go down on this escalator doing 1 mile an hour, and I just wanted to say, get out of the sodding way. It drove me mad.
Yeah, you see, there aren't any escalators north of Leeds because no one needs to get anywhere faster than snail's pace.
Also, there's nothing happening. So come on, let's get back to fencing, Chris. Types of fence.
Well,
so
there's panel fences, which is post panel, and then there are composite fences, which is lots of posts, arras rails that we've just discussed, and timbers, usually feather edge timbers, but not always. You actually make the fence as you go from hundreds of pieces.
That's it.
Which is very expensive. Panel fences, much cheaper, of course.
No, and the latter, the composite, is jolly good fun to build. I enjoy making them, and they look nicer, I would say. But you're right, a panel fence is a lot cheaper. If you have a composite fence that's blown down, can you cut sections out?
Of course you can.
And repair it?
It used to be difficult to redo the Irish rails because you put them into sockets. They were sort of mortised in.
Yep.
But now, it's for a long time now, you just buy another Irish rail and use an Irish bracket, which is ideally a stainless steel Irish shaped piece of metal, which we use to put the new Irish in. So yeah, if the posts are okay, leave them where they are. Stick a new two new Irish rails in, a gravel board, and a load of feather edge, and you've remade that panel. Panels are about 10 foot long in Irish rail fences.
You're going to probably get a fencing company in, are you? Would you say, or would you just call your local builder?
Well, a builder can do it, but builders don't do it. You need it's not really a builder's job. Builders tend not to want to do daft little jobs like that. If you can find a handyman who thinks he's a builder, that would do. Or a fencing company, of course, will do it. No problem there. What's that clattering noise, Pooch?
It's my cat has just come in.
He's not in there with you. Get rid of the bloody thing, the hairy little bastard.
He's got his cushion there.
Get rid of him. Get rid of him.
So, Chris, if your fence comes down and you cannot do the work yourself, what do you think? Are you going to call a fencing company or are you going to call a builder?
Either chap could do it. Builders tend not to do fencing because it's a daft little job. Builders tend to like larger jobs. You could find yourself a handyman who thinks he's a builder.
Yep.
He could do it. It's not difficult. It's trained monkey stuff, really, especially when there's a pattern to go to. And a fencing company will do it just the same. The price will be the same. Handyman, probably the best is a handyman. But how many handymen are there anymore? Or do we have to say handy persons?
Handy people. I have a theory that I think a builder will take more care than a fencer will, because fencing companies are used to doing this day in, day out. They thunder in, fencers, rip it all out, put it all in, get it done, and the plants that are destroyed, that's collateral damage. Whereas the builder may well be a little more careful. Certainly a handyman would be.
A handyman absolutely will be. Yes, fencers, I don't know whether you've ever looked at fencers' footwear, but they don't wear Frenchman's dancing pumps.
No.
They wear 7-league boots with added steel toe caps. And they're right up there with scaffolders and skip drivers when it comes to daintiness.
Exactly.
Yeah,
big clodhopper boots.
Yeah.
And yes, and that's the same thing. Actually, it's interesting you said about scaffolders, because if you and I were to put a scaffold up, we would break fewer tiles and make less of a mess of the punter's property than a bunch of scaffolders would do, because that's their job. They come in, they do it, bang, off they go. So that's a consideration, isn't it?
Yes, bang being the operative word.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, price-wise, now, what are we going to be talking? Let's say you've got a 90-foot fence down the right-hand side of your garden. It's a Arris rail composite, and most of it's rotten. You need to rip that out. The posts are concreted in, and get the whole thing redone. It's not a cheap job, is it?
It's not a cheap. And one of the main problems is the posts, which are now rotten, have to come out. If they were concreted in, then the best thing to do is start 5 foot. Put a 5 foot difference before you start, because you cannot dig. If you dig those old posts out and then try and put new ones in where the old posts were,
amateur mistake.
Yeah. So you start at least start where there aren't any posts, and then put a post there, and then just leave the old concrete in. Train your begonias to around it. Don't try and take it out, because it's you need 2 skips. It's an expensive job replacing an Arris rail fence, for God's sake.
It is. It is.
Particularly, and you will say goodbye to all of your plants, and more importantly, will your neighbour. Please tell your neighbour you're going to do this job. Don't. It could be a way to make a new friend. You've only lived next door to him for 20 years. See if you can speak to him for once in your life and tell him what you intend to do. Don't just get the Don't get the fencers in on Monday morning when he hasn't a clue they're coming in. You'll light his life up horribly.
Top tip for a fence, and if you're going to redo your fence and you're going to spend some money, is put concrete posts in.
Yeah. Concrete posts, not just don't get timber posts and concrete those in. No. So you concrete in concrete
posts. They will last a lifetime. Now, if you and then you slot your fence panels into that with a gravel board beneath. So every 15 years, it's going to cost you some gravel boards. If you put a timber post into concrete, well, it's still going to be sitting in water when it's wet, and it will still rot.
If you're going to put 6-foot fence panels up, you really ought to put 4 inch. If you're not doing concrete posts, you need wooden posts, which are at least 4 inches wide. Do not put 3-inch posts in, because they will snap like a matchstick. Unbelievably, it's comical to watch them go.
So, or really, we should all get into a bit of your Stonewall Jackson action and start building out. But they wouldn't be cheap, would they? Come on, let's prove we're not Southern centric. I bet your stone. What would you call him? Stone fence.
He's a dry stone waller. That's what the trade is, a dry stone waller.
And he would charge a pretty penny, wouldn't he?
Yes, he would. I mean, it takes a long time to lay a dry stone wall, and it's an art. And if you think you can do it, then you can't.
It's up there with Thatcher's.
Yes, it's right up there with Thatcher's, yeah. If you think that looks easy, you're going to make a fool of yourself. You've got
Absolutely.
You have to know exactly what you're doing. And the main thing with a dry stone waller is he picks up a stone and he does not put it down again, other than in the wall.
He's not handling it twice, is he?
Nope.
So, Chris, I think it's time for some questions.
Okie dokie.
As usual, we ask a question from the email, www.buildingsheriff.com. We ask one from Twitter and one from Facebook. So that's our social media profile, by the way. You probably don't even know we've got a Facebook page. Well, we have.
I do believe we have, but, if you gave me £1,000, I'd have serious trouble finding it.
Right, here we go. Amanda in Chepstow asks, my boiler makes a loud knocking sound when it comes on. Is this dangerous, and will it explode?
It's neither dangerous nor will it explode. It's an airlock, and it's relatively simple to cure if it is an airlock within the boiler itself. Or it may be, and this is even more interesting, if airlocks are interesting, it may be that the water pipes supplying it are not fixed properly, and the movement of the water sets up a resonance.
It's like that bridge. It's like that bridge when the wind was blowing and it went up and down and up and down, and that was a resonance, wasn't it?
The Tacoma Bridge. Yes. Yeah, it's a harmonic. That's what it is. It is a resonance.
Yes.
Yes, it is a harmonic. Anyway, whatever it's called, but it's water hammer. And if it's the pipes moving about, that's difficult to solve because they're all hidden. But if it happens to be just a bit of an airlock within the boiler, that's relatively simple.
I might pick you up on this, Chris, because going back to your exam days, do you remember your examiner saying, "Now, young Christopher, make sure you always read the question."
The question, yes.
My boiler makes a loud knocking sound when it comes on, not when you turn the water off, which tends to be that. I think she's got a combi boiler. I think this is kettling, Chris.
Kettling?
Kettling, yes.
You mean it's full of calcium?
It's lime scaled up to the hilt. This is what my boiler had. It was total lime scale. So what happens is you've got your heat exchanger and the water will pass through it and it heats it up and then it goes through to your hot water tap. Now, unless your water's treated, you get lime scale on the heat exchanger, causing it to suddenly boil, and it bangs and bangs and bangs. And I only know this because I had that on my boiler, and my plumber told me all about it. So it could possibly be that. In which case, the boiler needs to be drained down. It needs to be treated with a chemical to get rid of that limescale buildup, and then that needs to be flushed out, and then it needs another chemical in there so that this limescale doesn't happen again, the limescale buildup.
Indeed, and maybe you need a water softener installed on the incoming water line. Maybe your whole house needs a water softener, and that there are electrical ones which essentially last about 6 months, or there's a dirty
Yep.
great big thing looks like a vacuum cleaner, and that's the one you want. If you've got if it's that bad, then you need to get a proper one in, and they're expensive. Well, that's Pooch. You learn something every day. I didn't realise that was called kettling, and it never entered my head. So
Well, it could be both though, and certainly you're right. We've all had that when you turn the tap off, and it suddenly you get this knocking sound.
Yes.
That's the pipes.
Water hammer, yes. That's loose pipes. Yes, yeah.
My son plays Warhammer.
Does he? What?
Have you ever heard of Warhammer?
No. What is it?
It's again.
One of those. Wait a bit. So when kids are looking at their phone, not just kids, but 30-year-olds are looking at their phone on the train and pressing hundreds of buttons, are they all playing Warhammer?
No, you won't believe this, Chris. In my son's bedroom, he has his Warhammer kit, and they're like these mythical figures, but it's like an Airfix thing, and he makes them, he glues them all together, and they paint them. They paint all these figurines, and then they have a board game, a tactical game. It's pretty good.
Well, that is pretty good. I mean, children aren't only pressing buttons nowadays.
No. And he's a self-admitted geek, and he loves it, and he does a brilliant job. And he and his mates all go to this shop in Kingston, the Warhammer shop, and there'll be loads of 15-year-olds, but also there'll be blokes who are 30, 40, all sitting around.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
No,
oh dear.
I park outside and keep an eye on them, and they all make these figures. So anyway, that's Warhammer as opposed to Waterhammer. Right, so we're on Twitter now, Chris, and as usual, we are looking at what's trending today on Twitter, and hashtag royal wedding.
Oh yeah, yes. Jan's been telling me about this all day long, and I go, yeah.
Are you really interested?
Oh, I'm so interested, Pooch. I'm trying to think of an analogy of the person who's least interested on the planet, on the least interesting subject on the planet. Although I am a royalist, but so young man meets young woman, they probably have sex, and now they're going to get married. Whoopee, good luck to them. But, why bother telling me about it? I couldn't give it,
Big deal.
Yeah.
My friend's kids had 2 rabbits. They were very young, these kids, and they named the rabbits Arse and Big Deal, because that's what their mum used to say all the time. Oh, arse and Big Deal. So these 2 rabbits became known as Arse and Big Deal. Anyway, so royal wedding. Well, I only saw that when I looked on Twitter. I yes, like you, I could not give a monkey. At Bumper Baz asks, don't ask me. I've just moved into a new house and want to change the Yale lock. How much would this cost me?
If you want, I see you want to change the Yale lock because the key doesn't.
Yeah, no, or I think probably the key does fit, but he's just moved in.
If you look underneath the stairs, you'll find the resident trained monkey. Haul him out. Oh no, first of all, go to the ironmonger's and buy a £5 or £6 Yale lock replacement barrel. Then go and find the trained monkey underneath your stairs.
Yep.
Give it to him, and he'll do it in 5 minutes.
Exactly. It probably.
Or you could get a locksmith in if you want to get rid of £60.
So what you're saying is that you don't have to replace the entire unit, the lock itself. All you're doing is replacing the barrel, which is the thing in the middle. So there's 1, 2, 3 screws. Take the front off, and then you replace the barrel. Yeah,
the barrel comes with a new pair of keys. Job done. About 6.
It reminds me of a joke I heard. How do you get a fat bloke out of bed? Piece of cake.
Yeah. I was thinking of having Chris's joke each time, but the only jokes I can think of are just too risque. There's one that's fantastically funny, but it's a sick joke. I love it. It really makes people turn, but I can't tell them. So I'll try and think of a joke. All right.
Okay.
Not now.
Right. No. Okay. No. I know you well enough to know that you cannot do 2 things at once.
Indeed.
A bit like Gerald Ford. They said he had trouble walking and chewing gum at the same time. So now we're on to Facebook, and we just have a normal question today from Karen Day on Facebook.
I know a Gerald Ford joke.
Oh, do you? Go on then.
He was in a restaurant having lunch, and he turned to the waitress and said, I'll have the quickie. And the person he was with said, Gerald, it's quiche, mate. Anyway, carry on.
That's actually, that's so good, Chris. I think we should definitely start with that. I'm sure everyone's going to be writing in their droves or sackfuls.
Droves,
right,
yeah.
Droves. Right, Karen Day on Facebook asks, I've got lots of small jobs to do around my house, fixing hinges, hanging pictures, etc. How much would someone charge for a day, and would most builders be happy to do this?
If I was doing that job, I would charge you 200 quid for the day's labour, because no matter what you threw at me, I could do. And in answer to the second part of the question, most builders would run a mile. In fact, I'm thinking, because I'm nearly retired, okay, and I'm sitting there, when I'm not building my extension, I'll be twiddling my thumbs, because I just can't start. I don't play golf, you know. I don't help my wife around the house. I just keep out of the way. And I'm just thinking, I could do that. I could charge 25 quid an hour and just turn up at someone's house, say, give me the list, and I'll just do it. And it's going to cost you 200 quid, but all those jobs that your husband refuses to do or cannot do, or let's stop being sexist, you're unable to do, young woman, I would do, and I'd just go through the list, and they'd all be done. But it's gonna cost you.
And so you're going to turn up at 8 o'clock, and you'll work through to 4:30, and you'll have a little lunch break and do the best you can. And you'll say to her, listen, I will work hard. I'll work those hours. Bring on the tea, bring on the biscuits, but I'll carry on working. And then if at such point that I finish, you need me for another day, it's going to cost that money, but I will do my best.
I can tile, I can do electrics, I can plumb, I can plaster, I can diddly da.
And you know what? On the back of this, our Twitter question, you could probably chitter-chat about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry.
I could indeed, yes. I'd be good for 3 or 4 seconds of chat on that subject.
And on that Republican stance, I think we should say goodnight to the girls and boys.
Good night, girls and boys.
Oh, by the way, yesterday, sorry everyone, I know you want to turn off and you're about to go, but the podcast ended with you saying, good night, everyone, good night. And then it just said, who was that? And the podcast ended.
Did it?
Everyone's on tenterhooks, or tenderhooks, as I've heard people say.
It is tenter. Harry Corbett, of course. And what was on the end of his fingers?
Well, sometimes it was Sue.
Snoot. Now, Sue didn't like snakes. I do remember that. And what was the snake called? The snake, my boy, was called Ramsbottom.
Ramsbottom the snake.
Sue was a panda. Yes. Sweep was a dog, for God's sake.
Sweep was the bastard. I did like Sweep. Anyway. All right, so those of you who enjoyed this, please have a look at our website, www.buildingsheriff.com. And also we've got another site, www.sootyandSweep.com.
And we'll fade out to the Sooty and Sweep music. Da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Sooty, always we missed you, Sooty. Always the beachy troubles, always brewing. But really, we must be fair. He's the cutest, sweetest, lovable teddy bear.
Okay, Sooty, take it away on the xylophone. Ladies and gentlemen, Sooty.